I'm Eddie Inzauto, your host and editor-in-chief of GamerNode.com, and I'm here once again with...
Bianca, Figueroa-Santana.
How's it going?
I'm good. How are you?
Pretty good. I'm kind of excited. So, we like Bezier games, right?
Yeah, we love them.
Suburbia, Castles of the Mad King Ludwig.
Yes.
Games that we're really into.
Some of my favorites.
Those are designed by Ted Alspach, and this other Bezier game is not. But it sort of follows along the same lines as Suburbia, right?
It's very Suburbia-esque.
Suburbia-esque. This is Subdivision. I don't know if it's in between us or what. But this one is designed by Lucas Hedgren? This is a game for 1 to 4 players. Lasts about 45 minutes or so.
Yeah.
Something like that. Yeah. And look at that. It has hexes on it. Are there hexes on it? Look, there's a hex. Classic Suburbia style. Anyway, that's Subdivision. What's it about? Should we leave it right here? Is that like the cool thing to do? I think so. We're talking about it.
Subdivision is, as Eddie has said multiple times, a lot like Suburbia. You have a board, and in fact, there are several different boards that you can use over time. So you can decide to challenge yourself, or you can go with something easier. And you have small hexes of different types, just like in Suburbia. You have residential, you've got industry, civic, commercial, and then you have some tiles that are different from Suburbia. Upgrade tiles, which are parks, schools, and what am I missing? Lakes? Luxury?
Lakes.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, luxury was the...
Luxury was
so there are five basic zones, right?
Yeah.
Those were the residential, commercial, industrial, civic, and luxury. And then those other 3 play off of the base 5. Right?
Correct.
Yeah. Oh, and then there are sidewalks.
Ooh, yes, there are sidewalks.
Yeah. So the game operates in a weird way. So the idea is you're scoring points by covering up zones that have negative point values on them. So throughout the game, the goal is to cover as many of these as you can to avoid having negative points at the end. And you don't activate the tiles that you place right when you place them, like in other games. You activate tiles when they already exist on the board and you place something new next to them. So say I had my residential out, and the residential ability, the residential function is to build a school adjacent to it. In order to do that, on a later turn, I'll place any other tile, and since I place it next to the residential is activated. Now I can build the school.
So it's a domino effect, essentially.
Yeah, and it's also way more confusing to new players than I expected.
It is confusing. It is confusing because you're so used to putting things down and having them activate. It seems counterintuitive that you're putting something down, it's essentially useless for that turn, and then you're supposed to plan other turns around trying to activate something you already put down.
Yeah, so it involves some strategizing.
Yeah.
However, here's our favorite part of the game.
I like this part of the game.
I'm not a big fan. So, I love dice. I actually love dice too, but I'm not into this. You roll this die, and this die tells you where you're allowed to place the tile.
I'll hold it for the colors.
You should hold the die, because I don't like the die. So, for example, we show this pink diamond. Boom. You have to place on a pink diamond. And that's annoying. Because you're trying to put things next to your previously placed hexes.
But there's nothing stopping you from doing that. You can pay $2 to place it wherever you want.
Right. Right, so there's this give and take, and that's good. You weigh the benefit of placing on an off color, but you lose money. So,
that's true.
I mean, I'm not saying it's that terrible. I mean, it's a good game overall. The cool thing about it, well, one cool thing about it, is that it's a draft, much like a game like Seven Wonders. each round, all the players get a hand, so to speak, a stack of 5 of these hexes. And you look at them, you choose the one that you want, you play them simultaneously, and you pass to your left, and then to your right, and then to your left, and then to your right again for the 4 rounds of the game. And I like that because, it's always cool to have a nice little circular drafting game.
Yeah, and I think you can't strategize as much, which perhaps is a good or a bad thing, but you're getting a new hand. You don't know who's taking what, whether, you pick one and you're like, I gotta take this one because it's the only one in the stack, and then you're crossing your fingers that the commercial tile will still be there, for example, when it gets back to you. So you really do have to think on your feet in many ways.
Yeah, think on your feet and on your roads that you're putting out.
We didn't mention the road tiles.
Oh, that's right. Look at that. Yeah, so there are, should we go into really excruciating detail about the way these things interact, or does it?
No, I think we should just say, what do the road tiles do exactly, and then what do the sidewalks do generally? So, for example, if you want to live in a town where you're stuck at your house and can't go anywhere, then you shouldn't build any roads. However, if you want to get extra points and have your properties actually be usable by people who don't want to, for example, trek over a mountain to get to your luxury condos, you can build roads that connect to the main highway. And then every tile that touches one of those roads, you get 5 points at the end.
Yeah.
And then with the sidewalks, you get sidewalks from activating commercial tiles, which makes sense. You have stores, you have a strip mall or whatever it is. You need sidewalks for people to walk there.
They petition your town government to put those sidewalks in. And
yes.
Damn it, that government will attend to their needs.
Absolutely.
Because big business rules everything.
Exactly. And so depending on the number of unique tiles that your sidewalks are touching, you also get points at the end of the game. And no, we should not go into excruciating detail about that.
Yeah, they score in an interesting way. You have to multiply the number of main zones by the number of upgrade zones, and that's your score for those. You also score when you place parks based on how many tiles they're adjacent to. You earn money from placing lakes based on how many tiles they're adjacent to, and from building 3 tiers on a school, which is just every time you activate that same adjacent residence over and over. Those are like the main ways to score. It's pretty much everything, right?
That's pretty much everything. And the only thing you can do with your money is buy your way out of placing it on the color symbol that corresponds with the die. Otherwise, money is pretty much useless, although you get 1 point for every 2 points at the end of the game.
Yeah, exactly. It's decently quick.
Not the first time.
Yeah.
But once you
Well, it depends. It depends on who you're playing with, really. If they're grasping how it's going, then it's going to be no problem. You're going to draft, and be done. If they're not really grasping the way that tiles activate when a new tile is placed next to them, and they keep thinking that they activate right when you put them down, they're going to be asking questions every time you play.
Yeah. I was saying...
And that might be you. You might not understand. Who knows?
That's true. And if that's so, we're no judgments.
None from her.
Absolutely not. But anyway... I was saying to you last night that I think this game it seems like it's simpler than Suburbia, and in many ways it is, in terms of placement of tiles. However, the rules are much more complicated. So if you are a person who likes Suburbia, and I assume you would be if you're considering Subdivision, I would play that first with whoever you're hoping to play Subdivision with. Obviously not required, but I think it does facilitate learning a bit more.
I agree with that to an extent.
Ouch.
And I'll tell you why in a minute. But first, so let's go straight into our final thoughts and score it, I guess. So what do you think?
I will give it a solid 3.
Solid 3.
A solid 3, which is better than a soft 3. I think I like this game better than you. I think it's closer to a 4 than a 3, obviously, since I gave it a solid 3. I like it. I like that the way the tiles, the tiles look a lot like Suburbia, which is my favorite game of all time. You have more types of tiles than in Suburbia, at least the base game. And, I like being able to manipulate the tiles and strategize in advance. The thing that makes, and I like that the hardest part about that is just the die. So you can have a plan, and then you might not get the color that you want, and you don't have any money, and you can't build your strategy, and now you have to revamp the whole thing. I like that aspect of it. I do agree that it is, I agree with what you've said previously before this podcast/videocast, that it is complicated to keep track of all the rules and the way they interact. So on the flip side, when you're strategizing, it's really hard to keep track, especially because you're drafting and you don't know what tiles you will have in advance.
I'll give it a standard 3. just a regular old 3. I think it's a good game, but it's not one that I would rush out to have in my collection. I would always play Suburbia first. I think there's more to Suburbia. I think it's a better game, easier to play, despite it having more complex interactions that are more interesting as well. It doesn't get old as fast, because in this you have all these tiles, and you have 5 main tiles, and every turn it's like, oh, it's one of these 5 tiles again. I guess I'm just gonna place them.
Isn't that not the case in Suburbia, where you have a market, and the market is repetitive as well?
Right, but there are many more different tiles. They have specific and unique interactions between tiles based on what's placed around them.
Right, but what I'm saying is you can have a repetitive market, which is the same as having...
No, that's true, but I think here there is definitely less variety in this game than Suburbia.
Sure. I'm not going to reasonably argue because I don't want to take up unnecessary time.
Okay.
But I will concede that point.
Okay. So yeah, a standard 3 from me for Subdivision.
I think
so that we agree.
Well, no, because
totally.
I would sometimes prefer to play this over Suburbia, so I just like it better than you.
Okay.
Although we give it the same grade.
That's fine.
Yeah.
Let's move on.
Yeah, let's move on. To my favorite new game.